Welcome back to the Rugby Historian YouTube channel. Today we will be looking at the Women's Rugby Europe Championship that kicks off this weekend with two games. Spain host Belgium and the Netherlands host Portugal. We will be giving a brief overview of all four teams, their history in the tournament, how they performed last time out, talk a bit about Belgium joining this year for the first time since 2018, and then also look at their rankings and how their rankings might change after this weekend's fixture. So in part one, we'll do a brief overview, and in part two, we'll be looking ahead to see how the rankings might change. Okay, so let's get into that brief overview. So in part one, we will be looking at all four teams, starting with Spain, who are the reigning champions and who have won this tournament 12 times. They have won every edition since 2016. Now it's important to note that in 2017 the tournament didn't take place because of the Rugby Women's World Cup, and then in 2021 because of the COVID pandemic. But all of the editions that did take place since 2016, Spain have won. They currently sit 14th in the rankings, and they will be looking to get closer to that top 10 over the course of this tournament. Due to ranking gaps, the only game that they could gain ranking points from, however, is against the Netherlands, who sit in 17th. Next up is the Netherlands, who are also the second best ranked team in the tournament. They currently sit in 17th. They have finished second in 6 of the last 8 tournaments that were held, and last year they ended up losing to Spain by only 27 points to 17. They'll be looking to close that gap, and they'll really be targeting that game to really show that they've improved and taken steps forward at this level. They similarly will struggle to gain a lot of ranking points from the games they play against Portugal and Belgium, but their game against Spain represents a massive chance to shoot up that rankings. We saw that in the men's edition. Portugal caused an upset by beating Georgia, and Netherlands will be hoping to play a similar role and upset the odds against the very strong Spanish side. Then we move on to Portugal and Belgium. They are ranked 23rd and 24th respectively, very close to each other in the rankings, and they are also the 3rd and 4th best team in the tournament. Portugal only made it to this level back in 2024, so this is their 3rd tournament, while Belgium haven't played in the Rugby Europe Championship since 2018. So they won the Women's Trophy tournament last year, beating Finland and Germany, so they will be trying to establish themselves at this level with the Belgians women's side. There's no demotion or relegation from this level back to the trophy, so they will just be looking to establish themselves and target that Portuguese game for a win. Portugal, on the other hand, have now kind of settled here, and this is now their 3rd year in a row. They will be trying to show signs of closing the gap to the Netherlands, and we'll be hoping to perform well in that game. Okay, so those are the rankings. Spain sits in 14th, 3 places behind them are the Netherlands in 17th, and then we have Portugal and Belgium sitting in 23rd and 24th. So those two are clustered towards the end, and it'll be interesting to see who will finish the tournament as the lowest ranked team after all the games have been played. Okay, let's have a look now at how these fixtures will affect the ranking. So in part two, we will be looking at how these two fixtures could affect the rankings. Let's start with Spain versus Belgium. Now, like I said before, the ranking gap between the two teams is quite large, above 10 points, which means that with a win, Spain can't move up the rankings. They can't gain ranking points. However, if they were to lose, they would lose quite a few ranking points. So let's see how that looks in practicality. If Belgium and Spain were to draw, then Belgium would move up 1 spot to 23rd above Portugal, earning themselves 1 ranking point in the process. If they were to win by 15 points or less, they would gain 2 points and move up 2 spots to 22nd, while Spain would remain in 14th even while losing 2 ranking points. And then thirdly, the most unlikely outcome would be a runaway Belgium win. If they win by 16 points or more, Spain would finally drop down 1. Even after losing 3 ranking points, they would only drop down 1. So they're quite secure in their 14th position. They would drop down 1 position to 15th, while Belgium would move up 3 positions to 21st. Okay, so that's the Spain versus Belgium match sorted. Let's clear that from the predictor. The second game is a bit of a tighter affair that sees the Netherlands host the Portuguese. Unfortunately for the Dutch, because they play this game at home, their ranking gap will be above 10, since 3 points are added to your ranking heading into the fixture if you play at home. So in effect, their ranking points would be at 60, since they start the week at 57.42. So a win for the Dutch wouldn't move them up the ranking, similar to Spain. But again, if Portugal were to cause an upset, they would gain quite a lot of ranking points. Let's look at how that works in practice. So a draw for Portugal again would get them 1 point and move them up to 22nd. A narrow win, or win by 15 or less, let's say, would still keep the Netherlands in 17th, but would see Portugal move up 2 spots to 21st. And then if they were to score a runaway win by 16 points or more, they would move up to 20th, while the Dutch would move down 1 spot to 18th. So it's very much a similar pattern as the Spain versus Belgium game, where the team coming into the game ranked higher can't gain anything from win, but would suffer quite a lot if they were to lose that fixture. Okay, so let's line these two up at the same time. Let's say that both Belgium and Portugal score upset victories. What would that do for them in the rankings? That would mean that Portugal and Belgium would both move up kind of in tandem, while with Belgium moving up 1 spot to 23rd, while Portugal would move up 2 spots to 21st. So they would open up that gap to 2 spots instead of 1 over Belgium if they were to both win these matches against their higher ranked opposition. If they were both to score very unlikely runaway victories, the table would look very interesting. So let's say here that Portugal and Belgium win by 16 points or more. It would be quite a narrowing in the rankings. You can see that Spain and the Netherlands both drop down 1 spot, while Portugal would rise by 3 and Belgium would rise by 2. And the gap between the top and the bottom team would shrink. But of course, this is quite an unlikely outcome, but it's interesting to see how what would happen in such an unlikely event. Just a note on the side here, you will see that Australia versus Fiji is also up here. My apologies, we did let that one slip through the net. They have already played. They played on Friday afternoon here in South Africa, early morning down there in Australia. So yeah, we did not cover that one. The last thing I saw was that Australia did manage to beat the Fijiana in that game. Okay, so that was the ranking preview for this weekend's Rugby Europe Championship. It's a very exciting tournament, the second tier of women's rugby in Europe. We will see the Women's Six Nations kick off the weekend after, and that will also be fascinating. So the next few months will be dominated by the women's game, which will be very exciting, and we will be previewing all of those games. Thank you for watching the Rugby Historian. Please like and subscribe if you like what we do here, and we will see you next time. Ciao.